So now, we are going to discuss the illustrative examples in the introduction to axiomatic system. So to further develop an understanding of the terms and concepts described in the section 1.1.1 Introduction to Axiomatic Systems, let us have these some written examples. So, ngayon ang i-discuss natin is more on proving, examples in proving and creating models. So now let's proceed. So here we have example 1. Consider the following axiom set. So first, axiom 1, every ant has at least 2 paths. Axiom 2, every path has at least 2 ants. And axiom 3, there exists at least 1 ant. So, para mas maintindihan natin, what are the undefined terms in this axiom set? So, ano nga ba yung mga undefined terms sa given dito sa my axiom set na to, yung tatlong axiom natin, axiom 1, 2, and 3. So, the undefined terms are the ant, path, and has. Note that the ant and path are elements and has is a relation since it indicates some relationship between ant and the path. So, bali, ang elements, meron tayong dalawang elements which is ant and the path. So, ginamit din ang word na has to indicate or as an indication sa relationship ng ant and sa path. This ant, or in Tagalog, langgam, at saka yung path nila, yung daanan. So, bali ito ang gagamitin nating axioms or sa pag-prove, gagamitin natin sa pag-prove sa mga tanong later on. So, let's proceed to B. Prove Theorem 1. Ano nga ba yung Theorem 1 natin? So, Theorem 1, there exists at least one path. So, ito yung Theorem 1 natin. There exists at least one path. So, meron daw at least one path, kahit isang daanan. So, using the axiom set, here is our proof. So, here in our proof, we use axiom 3 and axiom 1 to prove the Theorem 1, which it is stated here that there exists at least one path. Ito yung papatunayan natin. So, by axiom 3, ito, there exists an ant. There exists at least one ant. O, yun yung axiom 3 natin. Now, since each ant must have at least 2 paths by axiom 1, yun yung nakasaad sa axiom 1 natin, that every ant has at least 2 paths. Must have at least 2 paths by axiom 1. Therefore, there exists at least one path. So, syempre, dahil nakasaad sa axiom 1 natin na merong at least or hindi bababa sa dalawang path, therefore, there exists at least one path. Meron at merong isang path tayong makikita. So, next, let's proceed to letter C. What is the minimum number of paths? Prove. So, we need to prove it again. So, using the axiom set, this axiom 1, 2, and 3. So, the minimum number of paths is 2. Why? Bakit nga ba 2? So, we also, we use again the axiom 3 and 1 to prove this one. So, here in our proof, by axiom 1, there exists an ant. Ganun din. There exists at least one ant. Call it A sub 1 or ant sub 1. Then, by axiom 1, ito, every ant has at least 2 paths. A sub 1 or ant sub 1 must have 2 paths. Tulad nga nung sabi doon, at least 2 paths. So, they have 2 paths. Call them path sub 1 and path sub 2, or P sub 1 and P sub 2. Hence, there are at least 2 paths. Kasi nga, sabi sa axiom 1, every ant has at least 2 paths. At least, the word at least, hindi bababa sa dalawa. So, that is the minimum path. So, the minimum number of path is 2. So, next, let's proceed to letter D. So, letter D, find 2 non-isomorphic models. Non-isomorphic means different. So, find 2 different models. So, bali dalawang different models yung hinihingi, ngunit tatlo itong nasa examples natin. So, in the following 3 non-isomorphic models or different models, the undefined terms of the axiomatic system are defined with letters to represent ants and sets of letters to represent paths. So, bali itong mga single letters na to, nire-represent niya yung mga ants. While yung set of letters naman na to, ito, tsaka ito, is nire-represent niya yung mga paths. So, sa unang tingin, kung titignan natin itong 3 models na to, hindi natin basta-basta maiintindihan or hindi natin agad maiintindihan yung mga nakapaloob dito. Why? Kasi itong 3 models na to is abstract siya, na kung saan kailangan mo pang kumbaga mag-imagine para maintindihan mo kung ano yung tinutukoy o yung pinapahiwatig or kung ano yung meron dito. So, now let's insert yung picture models para mas maintindihan natin siya. So, these are the 3 different picture models, and these models are concrete. Kung ito abstract, ito naman concrete models. Kasi nga nakikita ng mismong mga mata natin at hindi na natin kailangan kumbaga mag-imagine, hindi na need yon para maintindihan natin yung mga nakasaad dito. So, bale itong concrete models na to are adapted to the real world. Tulad nga ng sabi ko, hindi mo na kailangan mag-imagine dahil nakikita mo na mismo. So, in the diagram or in the 3 diagram models above, let a dot represent an ant and a segment represent a path. Also note that these 3 picture models above are isomorphic or the same to the corresponding 3 abstract models above. So, itong concrete models na to is isomorphic or the same siya with these abstract models above. So, bale, i-explain na natin kung paano nga ba siya nagwo-work. Before that, I just wanna make it clear muna pala na these 3 models in this column 1, 2, and 3, yung tatlong yan is non-isomorphic models sila. Okay? Non-isomorphic or different models yan. Iba tong model na to, iba ito, at saka iba ito. Ganon din dito sa concrete models na to. Itong first picture na to is ibang model, iba rin to, iba rin to. So, this is also non-isomorphic models. Magkakaiba tong tatlong to. But as a whole, this concrete model is the same with this abstract model. So, now, explain na natin kung ano nga ba tong mga nakasaad dito. So, we have in the first model, we have ant A, ant B, we have path AB, and path BA. So, in this first model, the order of the letters of the path dito is necessary in order to define 2 distinct paths for the pairs or for the pair of points. So, bali, kung papansin niyo, makikita nyo na pinagbaligtad lang yung pagkakasunod, and that is necessary, kailangan yan para ma-define yung distinct path, yung magkaibang path, since dalawang ant kasi yung given. So, bali 2 dots din siya. So, consider these dots as the ant and this segment is the path. So, bali, meron tayong ant A, ant B, and we have dito path AB and path BA. So, sa pangalawang column, we have ant A, ant B, and ant C. And we have path AB, path AC, and path BC. So, here in column 3, we have ant A, ant B, ant C, ant D, and ant E. So we have path AB, path BC, path CD, path DA, and path AEC, and path BE. So, yun yung nakasaad sa loob ng column. So, the above models shown the axiomatic system is consistent. So, bali, yung first 3 models are abstract, sabi ko nga kanina, which shows the axiomatic system is relatively consistent. While yung pangalawa naman, itong concrete models na to, demonstrates the axiomatic system as absolutely consistent. So, bakit nga ba siya consistent? So, these models are consistent because the 3 axioms, kung naaalala nyo pa, yung 3 axioms, each of the 3 axioms is satisfied for each model. Nasasatisfy nitong lahat ng model na to yung 3 axioms na yun. So, for example, so dito sa itong first picture na lang, so, yung axiom 1, nakasaad doon na every ant has at least 2 paths. So, bawat ant, so, kunwari ant A, meron siyang 2 paths. Ganon din itong ant B, meron din siyang 2 paths. So, nasatisfy natin yung axiom 1. Sa axiom 2 naman, sabi doon na every path has at least 2 ants. So, bawat path, merong at least 2 ants. So, itong path AB na to, meron siyang at least 2 ants, di ba? At itong path BA na to, meron din siyang at least 2 ants. So, nasatisfy din natin yung axiom 2. Lastly, axiom 3, there exists at least 1 ant. So, meron at least or kahit isang ant. So, meron naman either ant A or ant B. So, ganun din sa pangalawa at pangatlong model. Nasatisfy din lahat yung 3 axioms na yon. So, next, letter E, show the axioms are independent. So, paano nga ba natin masasabing independent yung 3 axioms? So, we need to produce a model that does not satisfy the axiom we are showing to be independent, but does satisfy the other 2 axioms. So, di ba bali 3 yung axioms kanina? So, bali 3 rin yung gagawin nating model. Hindi pwedeng sabay-sabay silang maging independent. So, unahin muna natin yung axiom 1. So, first, we show axiom 1 is independent. So, ano nga ba yung model na i-create natin para hindi masatisfy yung axiom 1 para maging independent siya? So, ito yon. Ito yung model natin na create natin. So, in the above model, axiom 2 and axiom 3 are true, but axiom 1 is not true. So, axiom 1 is not true since ant A has only one path AB. Yan. Kasi, di ba, yung nakasaad sa axiom 1 is every ant has at least 2 paths. At least. Hindi bababa sa 2 paths. Kaso, itong nasa model natin, iisa lang yung path. That's why hindi natin na-satisfy yung axiom 1. So, axiom 1 is not true. Next, axiom 2 is true since path AB has 2 ants, A and B. So, di ba yung nakasaad kanina sa axiom 2, every path has at least 2 ants. So, here in our model, we have 2 ants, A and B. So, nasatisfy din natin yung axiom 2. So, third, axiom 3 is true since there exists an ant A. So, di ba yung nakasaad kasi sa axiom 3 natin, there exists at least at least one ant. So, dito sa model natin, di ba, makakakita naman tayo ng at least one ant. Either ant A or ant B. So, nasatisfy din natin yung axiom 3. So, here in this model, axiom 1 is independent. Kasi siya lang yung axiom na false or hindi na-satisfy. Next. So, now, we show axiom 2 is independent. So, tapos na natin yung axiom 1. Now, axiom 2 naman yung gagawin nating independent. So, ngayon, ito yung model na create natin na kung saan hindi masasatisfy yung nakasaad sa axiom 2. So, the dot is an ant and the segment are path. So, itong dot is consider natin as ant and itong segment is yung path or yung daanan nila. So, the above model has axiom 1 and axiom 3 true, but axiom 2 is not true. So, axiom 1 is true since the ant is the dot with two paths represented by the segment. So, di ba sabi sa axiom 1 every ant has at least two paths. So, sa model natin, meron siyang at least two paths or dalawang daanan. So, nasatisfy natin yung axiom 1. Then next, axiom 2 is not true. Not true. Hindi totoo or false yung axiom 2. Since each path or segment has only one ant or dot. Kasi 'di ba sa axiom 2 sabi doon na every path has at least two ants. Kaso dito sa model natin, iisa lang yung ant. That's why hindi na-satisfy yung axiom 2. Which makes that axiom 2 is independent. So axiom 3 is true since there is one ant represented by the dot. 'Di ba sabi sa axiom 3 na there exists at least one ant. So, meron tayong nakikitang kahit isang ant. That's why, nasatisfy din natin yung axiom 3. As a summary, nasatisfy yung axiom 1 and axiom 3 maliban sa axiom 2. That's why, dito sa model na to, axiom 2 is independent. Next, finally, we show axiom 3 is independent. So, tapos na natin yung axiom 1 and axiom 2. Ngayon, ang gagawin naman nating independent is axiom 3. So, ano nga ba yung model na yon? A model where axiom 1 and axiom 2 are true but axiom 3 is not true. Consider a model with no ants and no paths. The model satisfies both axiom 1 and axiom 2 vacuously. But since there are no ants, axiom 3 is not true. So, nung unang basa ko to, hindi ko siya agad naintindihan. Medyo napaisip ako. So, mag-focus tayo dito sa word na vacuously. So, important reminder from logic. To understand a statement being vacuously true, we review concept from logic. So, kung natatandaan nyo pa yung topic natin sa set theory about sa conditional statement, actually, kasi ang axiom 1 and axiom 2 is conditional statement. Na kung saan, di ba, kapag conditional statement siya, kung parehong false yung antecedent at saka consequent niya, or yung kapag parehong false yung hypothesis and yung conclusion niya, kapag parehong false yon, di ba, magiging true siya. So, bale, 'di ba, sa axiom 1 kasi yung nakasaad doon, sabi doon, every ant, yung model natin walang ant. So, false na yon. Has at least two paths. So, wala din tayong paths. So, false din yon. So, both false yung hypothesis and conclusion niya. That's why true yung axiom 1 natin. Ganon din sa axiom 2 natin. Every path, sabi doon, kaso sa model natin wala tayong path, that's why it is false. Has at least two ants. Wala din tayong ants. That's why yung conclusion niya is false din. So, false yung hypothesis, false yung conclusion. That's why axiom 2 is true. Kasi nga conditional statement siya. Yun yung rules. So, bali ang axiom 3 lang ang false dito. axiom 3 is not true kasi yung axiom 3 is not a conditional statement. Kasi ang sabi lang sa axiom 3, there exists at least one and. Hindi siya conditional statement. That's why, since walang and sa model natin, axiom 3 is not true. So, hindi natin na-satisfy dito yung axiom 3. So, axiom 3 is independent in this model. So, next. So, write the dual of this system. So, paano nga ba natin isusulat yung dual nung system? So, dual of the system is formed by interchanging and path in each axiom. So, pagpapalitin lang natin yung and at saka path dun sa statement. So, yung and gagawin nating path. Yung path gagawin nating and. Ganun yun. So, ito yung original axiom set natin. So, bali kung isusulat natin yung dual axiom 1 natin, so, every and, so gawin nating path ito. Every path has at least 2 paths. So, itong paths gawin nating ands. So, every path has at least 2 ands siya. Sa axiom 2 naman, every path, gawin natin tong and. So, every and has at least 2 ants. Itong ants gawin nating paths. So, magiging every ants has at least 2 paths. So, sa axiom 3 naman, there exists at least 1 ant. So, itong ant, palitan natin ng path. There exists at least 1 path. So, ito yung nasulat nating dual of the system. Next, letter G. How do the system and its dual compare? So, paano nga ba natin siya i-compare yung dual dun sa original? So, here, axiom 1 and axiom 2 are duals of each other. So, itong axiom 1 at saka itong axiom 2 is dual sila. Kasi kung kukunin mo yung dual nila, kumbaga parang nagbaligtad lang itong axiom 1 at saka axiom 2. Parang nagkabaligtad lang dito sa may dual axiom 2. Kasi kung papansinin nyo, tignan nyo, itong axiom 1, napunta siya dito sa dual of axiom 2. Basahin natin. So, every ant has at least 2 paths. Basahin naman natin yung dual of axiom 2. Every ant has at least 2 paths. Diba parehas? At ito namang axiom 2, parang napunta siya sa axiom 1. Kumbaga, kung babasahin natin, every path has at least 2 ants. Basahin naman natin yung dual of axiom 1. Every path has at least 2 ants. Di ba magkaparehas? Kumbaga parang nagkabaligtad lang sila dun sa may dual axiom tsaka dito sa original axiom. That's why axiom 1 and 2 are duals of each other. Axiom 3 is dual of theorem 1. Kung naaalala nyo yung theorem 1 na diniscuss sa first part kanina, ito yung theorem 1, there exists at least one path. Parehas sila dun sa dual of axiom 3 na there exists at least one path, di ba? Same sila. Oh, there exists at least one path. There exists at least one path. So, axiom 3 is dual of theorem 1. So, hence, the system and its dual are equivalent. So, equal sila. Kumbaga, parang magkakambal ba? Parehas sila sa kanilang dual. So, therefore, this axiomatic system satisfies the principle of duality. So, now let's proceed to the example number 2. Consider the following axiom set. So, we have 4 axiom. Axiom 1, every ant has at least 2 paths. Bawat langgam merong kahit 2 daanan, at least 2 paths. So, axiom 2, every path has at least 2 ants. So, bawat daanan merong at least 2 ants, 2 langgam. So, axiom 3, there exists exactly 2 ants. So, hindi siya lalagpas at hindi siya bababa sa 2 langgam. So, axiom 4, any 2 paths have at most 1 ant in common. So, bawat 2 daanan daw, have at most. The word at most means not more than one. So, hindi dapat siya lalagpas sa isa. Yung common na ant dun sa dalawang paths. So, show this axiom set is not consistent. So, now, let's show this axiom set is not consistent. So, here is our proof. Actually, wala siyang ganitong picture model but gumawa ako. Pero based din dito sa proof natin. So, by axiom 3, there are two ants, A and B. Diba, nakasaad sa axiom 3 natin na there exists exactly two ants or only two ants. Kasi nga exactly, hindi lalagpas at hindi bababa sa two ants. So, exactly, sakto lang. A and B lang dapat. By axiom 1, ant A must have two paths, P and Q. Kasi nga, di ba sabi sa axiom 1, every ant has at least two paths. So, that is named P and Q, path P and path Q. By axioms 2, or by axiom 2, path P must have two ants. Since by axiom 3, there are only two ants, these two ants must be A and B. So, sa axiom 2 natin, di ba nakasaad doon na every path has at least two ants. Dapat merong dalawang ants. Kaso, di ba, sa axiom 3 din, sabi din doon na exactly two ants. That's why hindi na tayo pwedeng magdagdag pa ng ants. So, yung given na ants, dalawang ants dito, yun na yung gagamitin natin na ants dun sa path P. So, ant A and ant B yung nilalaman nitong path P. Kasi hindi na tayo pwedeng magdagdag pa. So, next, similarly, path Q, path Q must have the two ants A and B ulit. Yun din yung gagamitin nating ants. Kasi nga sabi nga dun sa axiom 3, exactly two ants lang dapat. There exists exactly two ants. That's why hindi na tayo pwedeng magdagdag pa. So, ito na yung gagamitin natin na kung saan nilalaman din or path Q must have two ants. So, ito na yung ilalagay nating ant A and ant B. Hence, paths P and Q both have ants A and B. Kung makikita natin, di ba? Parehas silang kumbaga naglalaman netong ant A and ant B. But this is contradiction since by axiom 4, paths P and Q can only have one of the two ants A or B in common. Kasi 'di ba sabi sa axiom 4 natin, any two paths have at most one ant in common. The word at most means not more than one. Kaso, dito, lumagpas siya sa isa. Kasi dalawa yung common nila, di ba? So, hindi natin na-satisfy yung axiom 4. Kasi nga, at most one, sabi not more than one. Pero lumagpas tayo sa isa. So, bali dalawa itong common nila. Sabi dito, A or B. Magkaiba kasi ang A or B dun sa A and B. Ang A or B, isa lang sa kanila. Ang A and B, both yan. A or B lang dapat. Kaso, naging A and B. Kasi nga, dalawa yung common dito sa path P and path Q. Dapat daw, isa lang. Yun yung nakasaad sa axiom 4. At most one, not more than one. That's why hindi natin siya na-satisfy. Thus, axiom 4 is not consistent with the other three axioms. Therefore, the axiom set is not consistent. So, since hindi consistent yung axiom 4 dun sa naunang tatlong axiom, therefore, the axiom set is not consistent. So, that's all. Thank you. Keep safe and God bless.